Some people have written to us and they said, look, you're not going to have a policeman with a gun knocking on your door accompanied by a doctor with a syringe. They haven't got the resources to do that. How actually could they enforce it if they wanted to? How could it happen? What would be the sanctions which they have?
Well, the French government released or circulated to the heads of departments an internal document of 19 pages which outlined quite clearly their method. And this is what I assume is happening in every country. They're going to set up vaccine centres that are outside hospitals and GPs. Some of these are going to be secure. People are going to be told to go there first of their own free will, and then they're going to receive calls, whatever, telling them to appear at a certain time. Then those people who do not come are going to eventually be collected and forced to go there.
Do the resources exist to actually do that? Because you're talking about transporting and enforcing and rounding up and making contact with hundreds of thousands of people and possibly many more than that.
Absolutely. If so many people refuse, it will be impossible. But they are assuming that the vast majority of people will either go of their free will, or when they get the call from, say, a police authority telling them to appear, or the notification, they will go reluctantly, but they will still obey that call. And the number of people who will actually refuse to go and stay at home when they're informed it's a criminal offence not to go will be very small, and it will be a criminal offence not to go. However, if it turns out that hundreds of thousands and millions refuse to go, then they cannot carry it through. And that's why it's important for every single person to say no and not to go along with it.
This is Bill Ryan from Project Camelot, and I'm here in Vienna on the 8th of September 2009. I happen to be in Vienna because I just returned from a conference in Poland, and I have just met Jane Burgermeister, who up until now has been a figure shrouded in mystery. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you visually to the world here by being the first person in the internet community to have made a trail to find out, and here I'm going to make a joke, whether you really exist or not, and I can demonstrate to everyone that you truly do. What, may I ask, Jane, was your response when you realised that you had an opportunity to basically to give a message to the world on camera, which is what I want to support you in being able to do?
Well, thank you, Bill, for, as I say, taking the trouble to come all the way here. And it's a bit off the beaten track here in Vienna. It is, however, a significant place, as it turns out. It is the place where Baxter contaminated 72 kilos of vaccine material with the live bird flu, and so nearly triggered a global pandemic just a few months ago in February. This attempt to trigger a pandemic failed because of the alertness of people in the Czech Republic who detected it in a laboratory in biotest. However, it has now turned out that Baxter still has at least a large amount of that 72 kilos of bird flu, and we're coming to a point where we have only perhaps a few weeks until the government here in Austria and other governments around the world intend to start injecting people with so-called swine flu vaccine material, which we have every reason to fear is going to be a big hazard to our health and has been designed to be a hazard to our health, even if it isn't contaminated with the live bird flu virus, as it might well be. So my message that I want to give to people, if I can give any message, is that time is running short, that we all of us now have to recognize the scale of the threat and danger to us individually and collectively, and we need to take steps and organise to stop this mass vaccination programme as soon as possible.
And as we were discussing when we were just chatting before we started this video interview, you feel a tremendous sense of urgency, don't you? This is driving you right now.
Well, unfortunately, we have seen how, in spite of mounting and growing protests in the USA and now in Europe, the latest polls show that 29% of the Germans are categorically going to refuse the swine flu vaccine. In spite of all that, the governments are pressing ahead relentlessly. WHO is pushing with tremendous determination this unwanted, unnecessary and dangerous program on us, and it's coming in just a few weeks.
What's interesting to me is that we, like you, get reports from all over the world, and it seems that governments in every first world nation, and maybe other nations too, seem to be preparing in almost like marching in step with this thing. This is coordinated, isn't it?
Absolutely, and if you look at the legal framework, they are all following the same legal framework, and it's the International Health Regulations of 2005, which give WHO, the World Health Organization based in Geneva, the power to control how governments respond to this pandemic, which WHO has itself declared. And every country has a more or less identical pandemic plan, which hands power over to the World Health Organization, which allows the World Health Organization to take over the police and the health forces. And every country will set up a crisis committee, which will determine, what vaccine centers are established, what groups are going to be targeted for vaccination, and so on. And that is the reason why it's so coordinated and synchronized, because there is a single body behind it, and this is the World Health Organization, the UN, and the people who back that, the banking cartel and family dynasty, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds.
Now, let's just back up a moment here, and for those people watching this video who don't know who you are and why we should be talking here in Vienna, can you just give a little bit of your background? The things that you shared with me personally, for instance, I didn't even know that you were at university in Edinburgh, how long you've been in Vienna, what you're doing here, and just a little bit of a bio. How did you get to this place? Sometimes you must wake up in the morning asking yourself the same question. How did you get here?
Well, my dad is Austrian and my mother is from Ireland, and I was born in Switzerland. And I went to Edinburgh University, where I did English literature and language and a bit of philosophy and so on. And I came to Austria in the year 2000, and I started working here as a medical journal